Cindy, I got your copies of the book in the mail last night, so your orders can go out today. Wow, so much empties. Good morning, everybody. How is everybody on this glorious, very gloomy day? So gloomy, so gloomy. Good morning, darling daughter. Can't wait to hug you tomorrow. Yes, I will see you tomorrow. That is correct. I am very excited to see you tomorrow. We are celebrating my aunt's 75th birthday, and she's so beautiful and so talented and so smart. It's just exciting. Any news on my package? Yeah, Catherine has it. My sister has it. They're bringing it to me tomorrow when we go to my aunt's what do you call it? Birthday party. Yes, that is good. They have it in hand and they will bring it to me. No, it's not lost. I just they're just over an hour away, so it's hard to get to, unfortunately. So they're gonna bring it to me, which is exciting. Very exciting. She looks like your mom, in my opinion. It's true, but they are sisters, so there is logic there. When I was a little girl, I will tell you guys a funny story about when I was a little girl. When I was a little girl, I went to Italy. It's at my front door. Remember to take it. Thank you, Mommy. When I was a little girl, I went to Italy with my grandparents, both of my aunts, and one of my uncles. And Mom was unable to join us because my brother had just been born and he was too little for her to take and too little for her to leave behind. So they took me instead. I was old enough to be away from her, so it wasn't a big deal about that, but I had never been away from my mom like that at all. And I roomed with my Aunt Louisa, who is the one who's having her birthday, or who just had her birthday, but we're celebrating this weekend. And I have a journal that I kept while I was there. And at one point I wrote in the journal that I forgot what my mom looks like, but I think she looks like Louisa, and that they were confused in my mind because they look so similar that I was like, maybe it's just the same face. I actually wrote that as like a 9-year-old. I was like, is it my mom's face or is it Louisa's face? I don't know. It's pretty funny. Pretty funny. Why are you making so much noise, Nespresso? I just cleaned it. Why is it being? It is a valid thought when you're little. When you're a little kid and your mom and your aunt look a lot alike. We were away for 2 weeks, so I was like confused. I was just confused. Have you always been adorable? I don't know. Is that adorable or is that funny or is it weird? I don't know what it is, but I did it. I did write it down. I did write it down. That is what happened. Both is good. Yeah. If is good. Let's make coffee for everybody, 'cause it's delicious. Coffee, delicious. Nom, 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 nom. Sorry. So, how's everyone doing this morning? Good? I hope. He's not asleep. He was still in bed when I got up, and he's going to come out eventually. Everyone's looking at me like, grocery shop. Hooray, groceries! We need to do that today. We really need a grocery shop today. It is quite necessary. Quite necessary. Three kids are home. My eye twitched as I typed that. Yeah, I don't blame you. Which 3? We're going to kayak this morning, but forgot to. Well, it's also so gloomy. Is it gloomy for you also? I mean, all 3 of the trips are home? Is it like a age thing, or? Yeah, right, Brian. You think you could trick me? Wrong. wrong. So, okay. I'm going to post about this on my book account also, but I wanted to tell you guys, since it's book club, something. Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, it's very foggy here too, Mom. Okay. So you know how my book got to like 26 on the rom-com list, which was very exciting for me. Like, wow. For an indie author, that was like dream come true kind of stuff. Like, my goal was to be in the top 50, and I made it to number 26, was the highest number that I hit during the promo, which was really exciting. Oops. But I wanted to see what other people on the list were doing, right? That seems like good research, yeah? So I scanned through the people on the list who were, all on the top 50, just to kind of like see what was going on there, right? Like who's in the top 50, what do they write, yada yada. And this is only a rom-com list. So these are all romantic comedies, supposedly, and all that jazz. And so for most of the couple of days that I had, for most of the days that I had the promo, hey Naisa, for most of the days that I had the promo, the first couple of books on the list were the kind of romance books that have like the covers with the people on them. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? The ones that have covers with like almost like a Fabio style thing, but like the updated versions of those, and that's generally not my vibe, right? So even though I looked at those, I was like, okay, I'm not really competing with those people because that's a very different book than what I write. Exactly. It's not for me. I would never tell anyone not to read it. I don't judge anyone who does read them. They're just not my cup of tea. So I skipped over those because, again, if you're looking at the list and you're looking at the cover of my book next to those, it's just not, you're not worried about that, right? They're usually spicy, but other books can be spicy too. It's just, there's just a different vibe to it, They're just usually a little more hit you over the head with it, and a little less story in my experience. That's not always true, but in my experience. So I looked at the first book on the list that had a cover that was the type of cover that is typical to the genre now. And I don't have one to show, but it's usually some kind of almost, right, exactly, Becca. Some kind of almost, like my book has a really beautiful cover because my fiance is a genuine artist, but like a lot of them have those like faceless drawings of people or whatever, and that doesn't bother me. I actually love them, and I buy a lot of books that are like that. But if any of you have read Tessa Bailey, who y'all know is not my fave, all her book covers are like the cartoonish part or whatever. And the covers are fine, right? So I went for the first one that looked like that, and it was number 3 on the list. I'm not gonna buy a physical version, but yeah, exactly, Naisa, exactly. So it was number 3 on the list, and it was like a purplish book cover, and it had 2 people standing on it and a raven, and it was called Nevermore Bookstore. And I thought, that sounds interesting. Now, knowing exactly what I just told you and nothing else, can any of you, without, I did not read the synopsis because I was like, well, it's on a free promo, so it can't hurt for me to download it on Kindle, right? I didn't even bother reading the synopsis. I just downloaded it based on, it's called Nevermore Bookstore. You were filtered, man. And there were 2 people on the cover, a guy, a girl, and a raven. What would you assume? Just anything. Give me anything. I'm halfway through the book right now, just by the way. Oh, that's fair, Becca. That's fair. Right. Thank you, Liz. Okay. Amanda, right. Okay. These are all things I must have thought. Not much to be honest. Fair, Amy. That's fair. Okay. Those are all good. These are all... I thought all of these things except for the one that Anya said, which is funny. Small town bookstore. Okay. Tiffany got real close to the first chapter. That you must know things. This woman knows what she's in for. Okay.
so all of these things are things that I thought some kind of Edgar Allan Poe related thing, some kind of like creepy death related thing, I thought all of these things, right? And I was like, okay, whatever. I need to know what's on the list. I need to know who my competition is. I should do some valid research in it. I wouldn't, Tiffany. Don't do that. Yeah. And so I got it with the promo. It's free, and I started to read it. And the first chapter, I was like, okay, this is kind of a cute, exactly what Tiffany said, sort of. Okay, and I'm not giving any spoilers. This is just the first chapter. This woman inherits a bookstore from her aunt in a tiny town, and it's called Nevermore Bookstore, and it's kind of failing, but every Thursday this very rich gentleman calls and places a very large order for books that's basically keeping them in business. That's the first chapter, essentially. So you're like, aw, kind of sweet, right? Like, whatever. They've never met. He just calls and orders books, you know? It very, very quickly devolves, like almost insanely quickly. There is nothing Poe related in it at all. And it I'm so confused by it. I don't understand it at all. I don't know what the plot of this book is. I am 50% in and I have no clue what's going on. I am a good reader, you guys. I went to school for books, literally. I am good at books. And I had to go back multiple pages multiple times and reread because I was like, did I skip a page? And I'd get confused and I'd go back to make sure that I skipped. Isn't Nevermore part of the Wednesday series? I actually don't know. It could be. It's a very famous phrase in like anything macabre because of Edgar Allan Poe. It could be. I don't know anything about the Wednesday series though, so I won't speak to that. But yeah, but we're besties anyway, Becca, so it doesn't even matter. But it's just I'm confused. She goes to Nevermore School in the series. Aha, okay. That's probably a Poe reference as well, right? So anyway, I'm confused. I'm going to do a full review of it over on my book page, but I'm 50% in and I have decided, and I will talk about this further on that page, I am pretty sure that a man wrote this book under a woman's pen name. This book was not written by a woman. There's just no way. I just don't believe it. You can't convince me. Right before I got up to come to book club, so every morning I read a little, like I usually wake up around 6:30. Maybe AI, Jen, maybe AI. That could be it. Either a guy or AI wrote this book. Those are the only two explanations that I'm willing to accept at this time. We do need answers for sure. I'm 50% in. I will report back. If any of you don't follow my book account, you absolutely should, if nothing more than to see the review of this book as I read it. I'm going to do a 50% breakdown and then I'll review it again when I finish, but I don't want to forget everything that I thought of today. Yeah, ChatGPT book. Exactly, Anya. That's exactly right. That could be. But hey, babe, Jen said the same thing you said. She thinks it might be AI written.
I see.
Really, Carrie? I think the best thing to do is just jump in, like, because. No, I don't think Jen wrote it. No, she hasn't read it. She's just saying based on the things that I was describing. Anyway, I'll talk more about that in the review and everything, but we should get to reading because I do have a quite busy day today.
You do?
Yes?
Just kidding.
What do you mean?
You always have a busy day.
You're right. It was me. I wrote that book. That's why it doesn't make sense. Becca, you couldn't. You couldn't.
Don't
Becca,
take that.
Don't
take
Becca,
that.
I'm willing to bet actual dollars, actual physical dollars, not even Venmo dollars, real dollars, that there is no world where you would say some of the things that are in this. I'm hoping tomorrow, Carrie, I have to do a couple of more things today, which make me think I'm not going to be done in time today. And I want to be able to Don't you dare say that about your beautiful baby girl, Ellie. There is no way that Ellie would say some of the things that were said in this book. You take that back. You wash your own mouth out with soap for having said such a thing.
Colin Kaepernick.
Don't say it. Don't say it on TikTok. My book account's name is Sasha Quinn Books. She just typed letters and then spacebar, and then I'll corrected the rest. Yeah, maybe. But yes, Carrie, the restock will either be today or tomorrow, probably in the 5 o'clock range. So either 5 o'clock today or 5 o'clock tomorrow. And what? And I'm gonna do my best to get it done, and I'll count it in time to put up. Yeah. But I will post about it ahead. Okay. So let's read chapter 15, and then I'll go do that stuff. But wild times. You have to occupy them somehow. Anything but that, Becca. Literally anything. Letting autocorrect create the book counts about it the same as AI, so I could see it. Yeah, I mean, maybe. Yeah, it's just, it's really something. It's really something, I'll tell you all that much. Secret Fiancé went down a rabbit hole and read like 50 reviews of it while I was complaining. Mommy drinking juice is boring. Yeah, I mean, yeah. He's not wrong. I typed one word and let the middle word of it. That's right. We should do that. That's very funny. All right, anyway. That's funny. Or I tried to edit it to make some sense. I mean, I almost want to suggest it to you all if it's still free, just so that we could all read it. Like, you can read it, we can talk about it. If it's free, still go down. Don't spend any money on it though. Don't spend any money on this. It's called Nevermore Bookstore. Why is flea prevention so damn expensive? That is a great question. Why is it so expensive? But if Nevermore Bookstore is free on Kindle, I highly recommend you all download it so we can go through it together. Because if I have to suffer, so do you. And now we read chapter 15 of a book that is way better. Way better. Okay. I loved the early 2000s party vibe even more than the late 90s. You were encouraged to be out there and be extra. What not to wear wasn't until 2003, and fashion police didn't come into play until 2010, after Twitter had gotten a chokehold on everyone's ability to think for themselves. I don't know why there's never been a show celebrating style that's unique and fully individual, but you know what? You don't need permission to be an icon. That's right, Anya. That's right. It's free on Kindle Unlimited. Yeah. I think it's bookstore. Pretty sure it's bookstore. But I could be wrong. Madonna's tulle skirts with biker boots, Sarah Jessica Parker's circle skirts and fascinators, Gaga's elevator boots and meat dress. Somebody had to do it first, right? It doesn't matter if the people around you don't get it right now. One beautiful thing about the internet is that the moment lives on for all time. Bjork Maharan's Pajowski's swan dress at the Oscars got laughed at in 2001. Now it's iconic. Everyone give me dinner ideas for the week. I can't think of anything. Tacos, chicken tacos, pasta primavera. That's all I can think of right now, especially I have $21 on Audible because they made someone read things that didn't make sense. $21 on Audible. You couldn't pay me to pay that for this book. I should read it to you guys just so that, you know, tacos done, pasta done. What about buffalo chicken tenders with a wedge salad on the side? I'm just giving you all the things we eat. It's a series? No good, Zinni. No good. Bad series. Bad. Okay. The reverse is true too, of course. The bad moments also live on and probably get more retweets. But the takeaway is wear what makes you feel good. When I share looks, ideas, and products as an influencer, my goal is not to teach you how to please other people. I'm encouraging you to please yourself. Even if the particular look doesn't stand the test of time, the memory of that good feeling will. And who knows? The look might experience a moment when the time is right. Papa used to say, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Style goes and comes around. Spirograph, not an Etch-a-Sketch. I moved into a huge house with 2 other girls, Playboy bunnies Jennifer Rivero and Nicole Lenz, who were always ready to party and had standing invitations to anything happening at the Playboy mansion. We each had our own floor with big bedrooms, bathrooms, and spacious walk-in closets. The mid-mod wallpaper and furnishings, boomerang coffee tables, papasan chairs, and glass bricks reminded me of Austin Powers, the spy who shagged me. We called the landlord Mr. Furley because he reminded us of the vaguely creepy old landlord played by Don Knotts in Three's Company. Okay. I've never seen it, so I don't know. The neighborhood was quiet and full of flowers and a perfect home base for me. If you don't find a house like that in LA for the money that we could... You don't find a house in LA like that for the money we could afford. So at first, we couldn't believe our luck. We were like, oh my God, how are we renting this giant house for so little money? And then we realized that Mr. Furley wasn't moving out. We moved in and he stayed in his room on the top floor. That was the catch. He swore he wasn't spying on us, and we never saw any signs of it, but we figured he could easily have peepholes. But it was generally a really, really great house. Obviously, I wouldn't accept this as okay for any 19-year-old girl now, but Jen and Nicole were a couple years older than me and completely comfortable in their own skin. They had a lot of experience handling all kinds of iffy situations. They didn't love Mr. Furley's haunting the place, but it wasn't a deal breaker either. We figured we could keep an eye on Mr. Furley as long as he didn't try anything, and it was worth letting him feel like he was Hugh Hefner's mini-me living in a house with a bunch of beautiful girls. And he never tried anything. To be honest, I didn't really care. It's sad, but I was basically desensitized about being seen naked. I'd love to say that this was because I was empowered with free and full ownership of my body, but the truth is modesty is one thing I'd been robbed of. One more thing I'd been robbed of. I've never seen Three's Company. Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, that's what I said. How could anyone else be able to stand that invasive shower observation day after day? Some girls slowly died inside. Not me. I just became numb to it. After a while, the gross comments just bounced off the wall, and when they stared at me with their greasy little eyeballs, I stared back, thinking, eat your heart out, F-face. Creepy behavior is about the creeper, not the person being creeped on. The mind is a powerful coping mechanism. Almost anything can be normalized or compartmentalized if the alternative is to go crazy. I'm not saying it's great, but it made me stronger and forced me to get over myself in terms of how people think about me. After going through that, I was tough enough to withstand anything internet haters dished out. You can't internalize the hate and judgment and degradation tweets spew. It's poisonous, wild-berry cooler crap that paralyzes you and gives the anonymous all the power. I don't know if I know who John Ritter is. I found a purple background. Yep, that's the one. That's the one, Anya. Yeah, good luck to you, Anya, in your endeavor. Oh, by the way, I watched her documentary yesterday, Paris's. Well, I listened to it while I worked, but it was very interesting. These days, I really do feel empowered by free and full ownership of my body, and that's something I grew into. It took me years to understand that I'm a performance artist, and my body is my medium. Like a blank canvas or an empty stage, I'll never create anything meaningful if I come to the work from a place of shame and cowardice. It's not about how much skin you show, it's about who owns the moment. Modeling and acting, you have to be cool with being looked at, objectified even, but you have to own it. You're not there as a prop for someone else's art. You're there as a collaborator, breathing life into a shared vision, taking that idea to a whole different place because of your own creative input. No one has the right to take it anywhere that you don't want it to go. The greatest photographers are the ones who understand that. You get to go above and beyond, bringing you into the vision. This was pre-iPhone, and I kept my old school beeper with me at all times so I could take advantage of any opportunity that came up. One day I got the call to fill in on an ad campaign for Iceberg Jeans. Never heard of them. It was great money, and more importantly, the photographer was David LaChapelle. This was huge. I think she talks about this in the documentary, actually. As a teenager, David was a protege of Andy Warhol, so my mom and dad knew him from back in the day. When his first book, La Chapelle Land, was published in 1996, New York Magazine called him the Fellini of photography because he created a huge controversy with the images that basically microwave everything you ever thought about the constructs of pretty and art and weirdness. Naked people piled in a plexiglass box, children destroying fancy dinner parties. The environments are cool, colorful, and iconic. Like Herb Ritts or Annie Leibovitz or Richard Avedon, David was an unmistakable style. You recognize his work the second that you see it. I've never seen anything like the pictures LaChapelle was doing back then. The faces are breathtaking. No fear, no hesitation, no inhibition. I wanted to feel what those people were feeling, and I wanted to be a work of art like that. David wanted someone who was available. That morning, they set up the iceberg photo shoot and discovered the model he'd chosen didn't fit the designer's sample size, so he beeped me. It was crazy for a minute because I'd been out partying every night that week, dancing my ass off in a series of parties and raves, living on catnip and french fries. Excuse me, catnaps, not catnip. Yeah, it felt different to me, actually, Naisa. I feel like it had a bunch of different stuff. Like, the beginning it went through it much faster. Catnaps and french fries. But I was not about to miss this opportunity. I zipped over from my house in LA, careful to avoid my mom, showered, changed, and threw myself together in record time. I was at that shoot literally 45 minutes after he beeped me. I was dying of excitement. It went fine, nothing extreme. He did a lot of standard commercial campaigns back then, and this was one of them. Cool, but appropriate for the mass market audience in print. I wanted to be in one of those iconic David LaChapelle shoots with a bizarre setup, still feeling like it was something from a high rating, a dark art house movie that exists only in his mind. Participating in those photos was more than modeling, it was performance art, and I was glad for the chance to show him how hard I was willing to work, and I hoped it would go somewhere. I don't know what that is either. His second book, Hotel La Chapelle, 1999, reimagined Madonna as Krishna, Leonardo DiCaprio as Marlon Brando, Marilyn Manson as a school safety officer, and he posed Barbie with a little gun shooting Ewan McGregor in the face as he breaks into her dream house. That's funny. That's true. That book came out right after I left Provo. As I relearned New York, I saw it in every bookstore window, and I tried not to get stuck on the idea that I might have been in it if I hadn't disappeared. I wondered if he'd heard the London boarding school story or if he'd even noticed that I was gone. I try not to think about how easily I slipped through the cracks in the floor. It's like you were walking down the street with your friends and suddenly one of them slipped down an open manhole. You would notice that, wouldn't you? I certainly would. I mean, I think I would. I hope I would. Or maybe we're all so focused straight ahead that people slip away when we're not looking. Shit. Let's all take a second and check on our people. Make sure no one has slipped down the manhole. If I didn't notice you slipped down a manhole, I'm sorry. And if you didn't notice when I slipped down the manhole, please know that I'm not mad at you for it. Anyway, I reconnected with David at a party and I told him I'd love to work with him again. Networking, always networking. I didn't tell him about everything that had happened to me during my lost years, but he could tell that it was a lot. I think this is an important aspect of his genius. He sees. I wonder if maybe he recognized that we had something in common. We both sustained some damage during our teens. We talked about Andy Warhol's muse, Edie Sedgwick, and in the intriguing idea of the it girl and how celebrity worship mimics religious ecstasy. Throughout history, David said, you'd always see the celebrated ones, queens and kings, aristocracy, entertainers seeming above all others, godlike to those who celebrate them. People cried out at Beatles concerts the same way they cry over a vision of Mary. It's the same well of tears. Like me, David was raised Catholic and he was very into it. His work is soaked in spiritual influence, transcendence, forgiveness, enlightenment, and it's full of religious iconography. In the late 1970s, he dropped out of school after 9th grade, ran away from home, and worked as a busboy at Studio 54, surrounded by innovators like Grace Jones, Freddie Mercury, and David Bowie, and the legends like Andy Warhol, Diane von Furstenberg, and Salvador Dali. I totally get how a kid would come from that experience with a different vision of the world. My own worldview was influenced by the music and intensity of club life that I'd grown up surrounded by my mom's fabulous circle of friends, including legends like Paula Abdul, Michael Jackson, and Wolfgang Puck. David was just 17 when he started working for Andy Warhol at Interview magazine in 1980, and he worked on every issue until Warhol died in 1987. Warhol was like, do whatever you want, just make everyone look good. David LaChapelle is what happens when someone's wise enough to give a creative kid a broad direction and then trust the result. Do your thing. I trust you. Go. I imagine those are the hardest words for a parent to say, and maybe it has to come from a godparent first. In my role as fairy godmother to my little Hiltons, I take that message seriously and keep it in front of them at all times. That's not something said very often to girls by kids questioning their gender and thing I can't say on TikTok without being flagged apparently, or by artists or adventurers, by anyone who dares to be different. Difference scares people who love you. Purely on instinct, driven by fear, they try to protect you, like my parents tried so hard to protect me. I promise, it's coming from a place of love. Trying not to be mad. If you need to hear someone say it, and the people in your life just can't, then I've got you. Here. Go. Do your thing. I trust you. Yep, that's right, Becca. In spring 2000, David and I started shooting, experimenting together with whatever time we could find, coming up with weird ideas and juxtapositions. With every edgy thought he had, I was like, yes! And he always had the vision. But with that vision, he gave me a lot of freedom. Most of the wardrobe was random, expensive clothes that I pulled from my own closet, mixed with key designers that I borrowed from Nikki and Mom. There was no expectation as far as publication, so there were no boundaries. The images that David created are all about contrast, glitzy meets gritty, which is the soul of Los Angeles, really. He shot Nikki and me in front of the Grand Motel, an infamous Nuance Motel on La Cienega near Pico Boulevard, where people were constantly getting arrested on drug and solicitation charges. The cops were called to the Grand so often the owners ended up getting sued by the city attorney's office for being a drain on police resources. Nikki and I stood just in front of the pink Rolls Royce parked next to the rusty phone booth, arm in arm on the stained pavement. She looked sweet and sophisticated in black and white striped Missoni cocktail dress, with her only accessory being a polka dot Dolce & Gabbana purse. I'm standing there in a Roberto Cavalli short shorts and a jacket with no shirt, my legs and lips open. A long Lady Godiva wig cascades over my shoulders, along with assorted bling, including a necklace that spells out the word rich. It's not a simple good girl, bad girl. The black and white stripes are the center of the photograph. The complexity ripples outward. It was a shot in the cool evening hours while the traffic was slow and the streetlights were coming on. Nikki and I look fresh and clean. There's no walk of shame vibes. This isn't a picture of two girls stumbling home when the party is done. It's two bright fairies who just popped in to see what condition your condition is in. The grass is at our feet and it's absinthe green. It's like he's saying, look at these girls, this place, this moment. It's not what you think it is. I'm sitting here staring at it right now, and after all this time, it holds up, sick in the best possible way. If anything, it's even more powerful because you know everything that's coming at these girls, all the blessings and the beasts hidden in the oncoming traffic. It's just an effing amazing piece of art. We did a shoot at Zuma Beach where I was laid out, spread eagle on the burning hot sand with a halo of curly mermaid hair. David scattered perfume bottles and cash on the sand like seaweed and beach treasures. Surfers stand around me, heads out of frame, holding their surfboards like phallic symbol much, but I was really laughing hard at the time because I didn't even notice. I had mascara running from the corner of my eye down to my ear. There was a lot going on, people buzzing around, adjusting props, hair, sand, lights, makeup, so I wasn't even aware that a stylist moved the silk top aside to expose just one N-word. I'm not going to say, not the bad N-word, the one that's a part of your body. I'm glad I wasn't aware because I might have gotten nervous. The magic of the picture is just blissful oblivion and the languid lack of attitude. David became more intense and elated, and I was caught up in the feeling that something incredibly cool was being created. It was thrilling, energizing, the opposite of exhausting, even though I was working my butt off. A lot of photo shoots are syncopated by the endless robotic mantra, yes, this beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous, gorgeous, yes, yes, but David never did that. Turn off everything, he said. Friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, parents, think about what you're giving, not what you're getting. It was after midnight when he said, we have to shoot at your grandparents' house. Let's go, I said. We'll have to climb the fence. My ADH brain has no room for hesitation. I'd gone up and over that fence more times than I could count, so it wasn't a big deal. I opened the gate for David and his crew, and we crept into Papa and Nanu's living room, where everything was creamy and regal. Grand piano, glass coffee table, china cabinets full of fragile treasures, brocade chairs, spotless drapes, immaculate ivory carpet, Grecian statuettes, on the mantle. A dignified oil portrait on the wall. It was all very stately, very Hilton-esque, like the lobby of a luxury hotel. The irony was so easy. Papa and Nanu were upstairs sleeping, so we had to be really quiet, and that made the energy all that more intense. David lit the chute and threw a few random objects in. A fluffy white bathrobe, a detangling brush, telephone on the floor between my feet. He wanted me to go full trash punk as a wild child. I leaned into the edgy Courtney Love persona with a hot pink micro mini and fishnet tank top with nothing underneath. The only accessories were sunglasses, silk gloves, and an unlit cigarette. The stylist messed my hair up choppy and loose and gave my lips nice plumpy gloss. Strappy black platform heels made me 6 feet tall. Sliving. I was back, here, in this house, where my family had celebrated 2 Christmases and countless birthdays without me. In this room where my cousins and siblings got to snuggle on the sofa with Nanu and tell her about their bad dreams. Maybe David felt my mood slipping. He teased me and catcalled me. Finally ready to wrap it up, he flipped me off and said, F you. Feet apart, chin up, I raised my middle finger and said exactly what I wanted to say to the whole effing dynasty. David caught that exact moment the F took shape in my mouth. Try it. Bite your lip and let the F-bomb drop. It's not pretty, but it feels fantastic, especially when you've been holding it in, when you feel like you've been hidden away and dismembered. It felt like Jack Nicholson's hatchet through the bathroom door in The Shining. It was just the moment then, but I look at this iconic photograph now and see my declaration of personal independence. These portraits manifest everything I was feeling inside. Celebration of freedom and fresh energy that was the undercurrent of my bottled up rage. They were so weird that I didn't expect them to go anywhere. I thought we were just having fun. He didn't even tell me he was showing them to Vanity Fair. And when he called to tell me everyone there loved the photos and they wanted to publish several of them, I was like, what? I knew if my mom saw those pictures, she'd be pissed beyond belief. And my dad, holy shit. I tried to pitch it to them like, well, this is good news. I'm gonna be in Vanity Fair. But the boobs and the finger, Papa and Nanu's living room, they were like, what the F? My mom is incredibly savvy about business and she gets the intersectional chemistry of fashion, art, celebrity, quickly recognizing that what the photo shoot might do for me. But this was not the image she wanted Nikki and me to present to the world. She'd been teaching Nikki and me since we were little girls to take high tea in Peacock Alley, teaching us the ways of polite society. These photographs did not fit that narrative. My mom called David LaChapelle and ripped him a new one. She called the editor at Vanity Fair and demanded they pull the pictures, but they had model releases, signed, sealed, and delivered, and David held his ground, defending the artistic integrity of his work. It was a fight for a while. Ultimately, Mom and Dad had to go along with it. All they could do in terms of spin control was participate in the accompanying article that was being written by Nancy Jo Sales. I'd like to lie and say that I got no pleasure from their distress, but after so many years of lying in automatic fallback position, I'd rather just own it. I did get a thrill out of the whole thing. Nancy Jo observed Nikki and me at Times Square nightclub called Saki. We arrived after midnight, and because this was the after party following the Council of Fashion Designers of America Awards, Nancy Jo described Nikki as tall, blonde, a ghostly girl, and called her sparkly Union Jack miniskirt an expensive costume for an Austin Powers movie. When Nikki saw that, she was like, what do you want from me? It was all Dolce. That part of the article was really all about Nikki, possibly because of that night at the club. I was off sides, networking away. Ben Stiller was there doing research for a movie about male models, shooting test footage with a little handheld camera and scouting out interesting people who might be cool for cameos. Well, we all know what that became. That's funny. I don't know whose idea it was to have Nancy Jo interview my family as a unit, and thank God there was no such thing as reality TV back then because we would have won an Emmy for most awkward family dinner. Mom tried to coach us all in advance into what to say and what not to say. This was Vanity Fair, not Page 6 or some disposable tabloid that comes and goes in a weekly rinse cycle. We were all freaked out and nervous for different reasons. For me, this was a huge opportunity. For Mom, was not into the idea of me being famous. She was there to protect our family and the Hilton name. The Hiltons are not new to the gossip economy. We've been in the tabloids since the invention of the flashbulb. Conrad Hilton lived in an over-the-top Bel Air mansion called Casa Encantada. When he was 55, he married a 25-year-old Zsa Zsa Gabor. My great-uncle Nicky was briefly married to Elizabeth Taylor. The gossip economy was just getting warmed up back then, but Papa learned quickly that it was better to avoid that kind of exposure. My dad is a very private person. He was intensely uncomfortable with revealing pictures, and the whole idea of the article was outsized nightlife of his teenage daughters. The plan was to have lunch in the patio of my parents' house in Southampton. Super casual. Just another day at Casa Encantada. Dad was there and as silent as a stone. Mom orchestrated everything with a chatty energy. I felt intensely nervous and shy, just wanting it to be over. Nancy Jo asked a few general questions about my friends and who I was dating. The paparazzi had taken some pictures of me with Eddie Furlong, and she'd heard rumors about Leonardo DiCaprio. I hate it when articles defined women by who they were dating. Like, that's their resume? Ick. I tried to steer the conversation towards movies and music that I was working on, but Nancy Jo seemed super interested in the Leonardo DiCaprio rumors. We, hang out at parties, I said. He's nice, but... Well, did you see the story? Mom cut in with a spin. A full page in the Inquirer. They're just making this stuff up. Then there was an awkward silence. Mom said something about her friends calling her Mrs. It, because I was It Girl, and that was my nickname at home, Star. Nancy Jo looked at me like she was working out a math problem. Paris, your eyes are so blue, she said. They're contacts. I almost said thanks, but then I thought she might be trying to trap me so that she could call me out for pretending, which reminds me of another rule that I wish I'd figured out sooner rather than later in life. Stop effing pretending. It takes too much energy and it makes you paranoid. Mine are real, said Nicky. Dolce and Sebastian pawed at my ankles, begging for bits of grilled chicken. Are you close? Nicky Jo asked me. Nicky and I both said, very. She asked what we'd like to do together, and even though she'd already seen us going to the club, I didn't know what else we were supposed to say. Jump rope? Mom chimed in with shopping, golf, ice skating, skiing. She said we liked Tahoe, and Dad said we liked Vail. The baby voice came out of my mouth and said, I like going to pet stores with my dad. Sometimes we go in and buy a puppy. Will you be going to college? Nancy Jo asked. I decided to take a year off, I said. I felt Mom's eyes drilling into the side of my head and added something about my parents wanting me to go to college. I had no smooth answers for questions about normal teenage things, SATs, prom, graduation. I had stock answers to those questions, as did my parents, but it made me sad to be a liar when David's pictures were so full of truth. She knows she'll have to work hard and support herself, Mom said. She's finally figuring that all out. Nicky waved a fly from her plate and scoffed. This is so ironic. See, no pretending. It actually works. People want to be heard, said Mom. They want to talk and chat, and I see people at parties doing this, and I think to myself, what are you doing? I didn't know who she was talking about, but I felt the need to defend myself. With Dolce on my lap for courage, I said, I'm not just some party girl. Whatever people think, I have my own business. I do music, and I'm fundraising for breast cancer because my grandmother is sick. I want people to know about that. Well then, Mom said, speak up. I'm trying to, I said tightly, but you keep interrupting me. We glared at each other across the table, tied to each other like we were in a three-legged race. Shame bound us together in an unspoken pact. Don't tell anyone what you know. But for anyone who's willing to see it, those David LaChapelle photos say everything that I couldn't articulate as a teenager. I'm here. I'm free. I'm young and angry and sensual, and I am me. Mom and Dad were nervous, waiting for the issue to drop. You can't control these things, Dad warned me. You don't know what they're going to do until they cast it. Ultimately, the article casts him as the angry Hemingway character, and it says Mom was wearing a kooky flowered hat and a cheeky high Lily Pulitzer skirt, which was unfair because, I was a fan of the hat. I wasn't a fan of the hat, but Mom looked classy and beautiful as always. I didn't love the description of my shoes, lucite sandals that look as if they were worn by streetwalkers on the planet Zorg, but she said that I looked like a 1930s movie siren, so I was happy about that. The photo spread appeared in the September 2000 issue of Vanity Fair. Gwyneth Paltrow on the cover with steel blue header, The It Parade. On page 350, superimposed on the pictures of Nicky and me on the sidewalk outside the Grand, a visual pun obviously intended, the lead says, Hotel pioneer Conrad Hilton strutted a parade of showgirls on his arm, and Zsa Zsa Gabor as his second wife. His son, Nicky, notoriously wed and divorced Liz Taylor, now a fourth Hilton generation, 19-year-old Paris and her 16-year-old sister Nicky in her wake. It's setting society on its ear. planning a cosmetics line, starring in a documentary about herself, and denying tabloid tales of romance with Leonardo DiCaprio. Paris is the very model of a hip-hop debutante. For 3 generations, the Hilton men were the movers and shakers. The Hilton women were either show horses or behind every man there's a good woman, women. They had their own ambitions, rich inner lives, but first and foremost, they were Mrs. Hilton. Nikki and I were supposed to marry good men and carry on the tradition. My brothers were supposed to marry nice women and carry on the Hilton name. And then there was me. Before Papa died, he used to joke, most of my life I was known as Conrad Hilton's son, and now I'm known as Paris Hilton's grandfather. Those David LaChapelle photos are the inflection point where that history tipped into the future. They opened the floodgates of opportunity for me, lifting my name from tabloid to A-list fame, above and beyond the gossip economy. I went from model to supermodel, walking in major New York Fashion Week shows. My side hustle, getting paid to party, turned into real money, like a lot of money. The more people saw me, the more money I made, and not just for myself, but for everyone around me. All this was happening in the middle of the dot-com renaissance. Perez Hilton says he began blogging in the early 2000s because it seemed easy, and it was. The internet was a massive black hole, sucking up every bit of content that it could find, and suddenly all these eyeballs were out there with no rules about what you could put in front of them. Celebrity gossip was the chicken McNugget of new informational age, not especially good for you, but delicious and irresistible. I was at the eye of that perfect storm. We've always had the celebrated ones, David said, but this is something different. People didn't start saying influencer until about 2015, so I didn't know what to call it or what it might become when it started happening. I didn't know how to do anything other than live my life for better or worse, so I just kept doing it all as it became larger than life. And you probably know what happens next. Paris Hilton happened. There you go. There you go. All right, well, I will probably see you all later. If not for restock, then to make some slime for grab bags or something. But that is the whole kit and caboodle. I will do the review I was talking about on the other page. If anyone is interested in joining me on that hilarious journey, please do. I'd love to talk to you about it. And that's all. See you guys later. Is it frowned upon to just feed the kid noodles? No, it's not frowned upon. Do it. Fed is best.